Let's talk about misinformation. Where's that up to?
Well, the government's put forward its proposal and it looks doomed to fail already. Unless they can get the crossbench somehow, but they've opened up a war with Elon Musk. We know that probably doesn't hurt them electorally. David Coleman, the opposition communications spokesman, on with me yesterday, kind of indicating they'll come up with their own misinformation policy before the election, but says this goes too far. He says academics are protected, journalists, I think, are protected, but ordinary commentators aren't. And it just seems quite subjective, this definition in the bill. If you do serious harm to the economy, for example, with something you say, you could be prosecuted. Now, it might have the best of intentions. In fact, I'm sure it does, to be frank, cracking down on big tech. But the danger is, the way Coleman and others see it, is the wording means people can get caught up under a future regime, a future government, and it's thin end of the wedge stuff. So whoever's in government has to figure out how to crack down on this big tech, some of this rubbish that's coming on our screens, which is really leading to scams and all sorts of things, versus freedom of speech. David Coleman, he just dismissed this bill out of hand yesterday.
The government got this wrong catastrophically last time, Andrew. So the Minister put this bill out in June last year. We had 4 months when pretty much everyone in Australia came out and said it was a grotesque piece of legislation, from the Civil Liberties Council to the Human Rights Commission. They pull the bill in disgrace in November. They then work on it for 10 months. And then they've come out with a bill which has a lot of issues. We in the coalition will always stand up for free speech. We did that last time. We fought this bill very hard. It had to be withdrawn, and we'll certainly fight hard for free speech this time as well. One of the things in the bill, the kinds of harm that is not allowed, is something that might cause imminent harm to the economy or the stock market.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I mean, that's basically every economic policy that the Greens have ever announced. So are we basically saying, under the misinformation bill, that, effectively all Greens' economic statements are misinformation?
That might just be the funniest thing David Coleman's ever said.
You like that one. You don't see him as a funny guy? Sometimes, some of these straight guys can be funny.
Yeah, he's delivered well as well. But look, I don't think any misinformation bill, you're never going to get anything perfect there. So it's hard. That's a hard political slog as well. And not everyone's going to see the merit in it, but it's something that needs to happen. Anyway, let's talk inflation, because this is at the core of everything at the moment. Andrew Charlton was interesting, wasn't he? Was he contradicting Jim Chalmers, or is there a good cop, bad cop thing going on here?
Or have they changed direction?
Yeah.
So, of course, he was Rudd's economic advisor when Jim was Wayne's chief of staff, so they probably have an interesting relationship. But he was sort of saying the RBA is doing their job on inflation here, and we're with them. Whereas Jim Chalmers has been saying that the Reserve Bank is, well, interest rates are smashing the economy. That's true, but it looks like he's blaming the Reserve Bank. So I saw a subtle change in language here from the government.
What I can tell you is what the federal government strategy is, and that strategy is to reduce inflation and thereby help Australians with the cost of living. And that strategy is working. The RBA is doing their part by putting up interest rates. The government is doing its part by delivering a big surplus. And together, we've brought down inflation by half.
You know me, I'm already in election mode, looking at the poll after poll after poll, and there's a trend here. Minority, we've been talking about that for quite some time, but the first time Freshwater has published its poll saying, well, yes, hung parliament, but it could be Dutton that forms government. I think that's still an outside chance.
Yeah. I mean, look, anecdotally at the moment, I'm starting to hear about businesses getting into trouble. Totally. You know, I'm starting to hear about businesses feeling the pinch. I'm starting to feel about the rates are certainly having effect. It's hard to escape the conclusion that the only way Labor can get minority government assured, and a reasonable minority government where they can govern, is a rate cut. It's hard to get away from that. If they don't get a rate cut, they're in all manner of trouble, because this will keep hemorrhaging. Yeah. And without rates coming off, there won't be growth.
I agree with you in that sense, but I don't even think a rate cut gets them there, because already we're, we're laser focused. Anyone with a mortgage is laser focused on when the next rate cut would be. You're following the news on that. We know that the economists, all the experts are talking about February. So I think that February rate cut comes, voters have already priced it in, and there'll be perhaps minimal, political effect for the Labor government.
We're talking about a pretty tight election. So I think what happens if there's a rate cut, it's a tick to the government's economic strategy. They've got on the narrow path and out of jail.
Just one,
I do. Well, one or two. They could get two before May. But that's the key.
One rate cut isn't going to bring that relief.
No, because then it says to people,
stick
you'll
with
get
us.
more.
Yeah.
We're on the right track. We were right all along. But let's look at the other option. They don't get a rate cut. By May, everyone's like, well, you guys just can't manage an economy. See you later. So that's the game we're in now.
Yeah.
It's the economy stupid,
Yes, it is. All right. Well, on that note, Andrew, fascinating to talk to you, of course. I'll see you soon.